some notes today. Maybe even write down some of those questions that you might have. You have the flyer with some details about next month's seminar on May 12th. And then you have a colored evaluation. It's either purple or blue. And your thoughts are so important. Hi, Miss Jane. Your thoughts and your comments are so important. We want to make sure that we hear you and that you have an opportunity to make any recommendations or suggestions that you have. Restrooms. I made a note to make sure everybody knows where the restrooms are. we all, yes, we need them. So it's, the restrooms are a quick left and a quick right, all the way to the wall. Is that right? Quick left and quick right, and all the way to the wall. So if you need to go, just feel free. Make yourself at home. All right. So today's topic is living to 100. And your panelists will come up shortly. We will talk to about 11 and give you an opportunity to ask some questions. And we'll finish up at 11:30 unless we run out of questions. How's that? I'll try not to overtalk. That's what I did in my first seminar. I talked too long. There was a lot to share, wasn't there? All right. Well, with I gotta remember all these things. All right, I want to thank my education partners. We have Mike over here. We have Rock. Let's see, Mike is with Elkin Financial. Rock is with Crosspoint Mortgage. We have Jonna with Harmony Moves. And we have Judy and Dave with Assisted Living Locators. Now, I want to share with you that these are not only my education partners, but they are becoming friends of mine and go-to people. So when my tribe asks questions, they will take their calls. You know, they're just fast to return this and help sort of not just to share and really dig in and figure things out. And it is so helpful in a complicated world with so much information. So take some time and get to know them. They will be there for you as well. We are here, it's important for us to share with you that we are here to just to be a support to you. As we grow older, life continues to get more complicated. It doesn't tend to get easier, which I always thought it would get easier, but it's just more complicated. I see some nodding in the audience, so it's and that is how your silver journey sort of came to be, because I'm getting older, my tribe's getting older, we have more questions, and we wanted to create a safe place to be able to ask those questions. So take a look at the series and invite friends, and just know that this is a safe place to ask questions. Get some phone numbers and to be able to call them when you need anything. All right. Let me finish introducing. We had Jonna with the Harmony Moves. Oh, I already did that. Okay. I was like, I got all the way to the end. All right. So now I want to thank our expert panelists. And why don't you guys come up? We've got Dave. He's going to talk to us today, and Tara Weed, and then we have the duo, Sam and Haley. Come on up. So I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask these fine folks, and then you're going to have an opportunity to ask them questions. So, all right. Without further ado, we're going to put Tara on the hot spot with the Alzheimer's Association. So, Tara, we want to know how we live to 100. How can we live to 100 in a way that that makes us happy, I guess?
Yeah, and honestly, the biggest question of the hour, most likely, living to 100. And there's a lot of things in our control, and there's a lot of things out of our control as well. So when we look at the things that are out of our control to living at 100, we look at what we refer to as your non-modifiable risk factors. You can't change your age, The minute you're born, you start aging. We have no control over that. If we could, I don't know what society would be like. It'd probably be pretty crazy. You can't change your race or your ethnicity. So depending on what your race or ethnicity is, you may be at higher risk for certain diseases, such as Alzheimer's and dementia, and then you also can't change what your gender is, which also can put you at higher risk for certain things. Men have higher risks of, cardiovascular disease and so forth. And so there's things that you can't change. So you can't change your age, race, ethnicity, or your gender. But there are things that you can modify for your life to just really focus on your quality of life, because that's really what we want to focus on. How can you live happily? How can you live healthily? And how can you thrive? And so we look at that with our modifiable risk factors. So you can change how you eat. If you're eating a well-balanced meal, and I'm not telling you not to eat the iced lemon milk from Starbucks, because I had that this morning. I'm not telling you not to eat that. It's all about moderation. It's all about, keeping in those greens, keeping in those meats, having a well-balanced diet. It's being physically active. I'm also not telling you to run a marathon, because I will never run a day in my life, unless I'm forced to. But, doing Tai Chi, yoga, going for walks are great ways to keep yourself physically active. And a big one is staying socially connected, which I know we might get into a little bit later on, so I'm going to save some of my stuff for that. But it's really just focusing on keeping yourself healthy and happy. You can live a long and happy life if you focus on what your body needs, what your mental health needs, and surround yourself by people who also support that and environments that support that.
Good. So I hear you saying that just eat healthy in moderation, move,
Yes.
some sort of moving, but not necessarily running.
You don't have to run. You don't have to run.
Good, thank you for that. So some walking,
Yeah.
okay. And then socializing. Tell me why socializing is so important.
So socializing is how we stay connected. We may have people who identify as lone wolves, but at the end of the day, we're human. We crave social connection. We crave time with our loved ones. And it keeps our brain active. It keeps our brain moving. It gives us a sense of community that keeps our brain active, which is so, so important. You hear a lot, from the Alzheimer's Association, we talk a lot about your brain. We talk about a lot about your heart, because what's good for your heart is what's good for your brain, and vice versa. And so you want to stay active. You want to stay engaged as much as you can, but I also want to emphasize that it's the quality of interaction versus the quantity. If you have an amazing family member who comes and visits you once a week and you guys have just great conversation, that is so much better than just tiny little interactions that may not be filling your social bucket. You want to stay socially active as much as you can by, and that isn't just, texting, calling, FaceTiming. Join clubs, do silver sneakers, go out into the community and volunteer if that's something that you're able to. And even just joining different apps that allow you to stay active, socially active, it's really, really important, and it can help keep your mind active and actually help reduce your risk of things like Alzheimer's and dementia. We're seeing a lot that when people are isolated, their brain starts to just stop functioning as well. You're missing those opportunities to really work on your toolkit of social connection, and it can make it harder for you to stay engaged and make you actually be more susceptible to some cognitive decline. So socialization is so, so important. And it kind of involves all of the other things we said. When you stay active, a lot of the times you're doing that with friends, a walking group. When you're eating well, you could be doing it with a partner or a family member, meal prepping. There's ways that you can incorporate both to kind of help you, thrive and live longer.
Thank you. I'm glad that you brought up clubs and different organizations, because my loved ones are my kids, and they are living their own lives. So I don't see them as often as I would like. And so I appreciate you sharing with me alternative ways of engaging. I think about some of my friends that, I have some questions for Dave. Obviously he's here. I have lots of questions for Dave. But a lot of my friends right now are thinking about aging in their home as long as possible. So I want to ask Haley and Sam, what are some things that we can do to stay in our homes as long as possible?
Sure. So Sam and I are both occupational therapists by trade. Are you guys familiar with occupational therapy? It's the other therapy. So occupational therapists, we're trained to see see how you're doing functionally and how you're living your life and what you like to do. And if staying home in your space is what you wanna do, that's what we wanna try and help you with. In Home Preferred, we do home safety assessments, so aging in place is what we see on a daily basis. So those things to do, you know, you wanna get ahead of things. If you're still golfing 3 times a week, that's the perfect time to start planning to age in place. Falls are one of the most, you know, high risk factors for going to the hospital. So preventing falls is our number one thing. Looking at your entryways and looking at your bathrooms and the most used areas of your space and see how we can eliminate that fall risk. So removing rugs, putting grab bars in, support, you know, fall risk monitors, motion sensors, things of that nature, which we can kind of talk a little bit more about technology, is probably the biggest thing that you need to start earlier rather than later, because once you start falling, your risk to fall more starts getting bigger and bigger and more apt to happen. So getting ahead of things is primarily the first thing to do.
And I would say the other thing that we see a lot is, as treating occupational therapists, people come in with injuries that they've already had. They've had strokes, they've had falls, they're needing these rehab stays, and they're not able to get home quickly because their home's not set up for them to return home. So if we kind of eliminate some of these barriers earlier on, we don't have the 3 steps to get inside. Our bedroom and bathroom's not all the way upstairs. We already have a walk-in shower. We're able to send patients home a lot sooner, and we're able to send them home safer with less caregiver support, less assistance needed. So the value of preparing your home as soon as possible to decrease those falls. Studies are showing that people that get home assessments and start implementing modifications are having a 38% decreased risk for falls. So it's, yeah, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I have a client right now who we've been talking about them going through the downsizing process since last June. And, you know, what's the rush? So, you know, and then my friend had a stroke in December. And so he was in rehab, but he's in assisted living right now until the house can get ready for him to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's been a long time, so, thank you for sharing that.
And unfortunately, the way insurance is working, these stays aren't covered for long enough. So we're sending people home before they're ready. And so some of these rush jobs and getting a contractor in to get some of the work, it's just not possible. And so we're having to find other solutions, like staying long-term, you know, doing the things that you weren't wanting to do because of time, insurance restraints, those kind of things, so.
I met you guys several months ago at something else that we were at together, and I heard a stat that by 2030, 1 out of every 5 people will be
Over the age of 65.
over the age of 65. So we talked a little bit about real estate, and a little bit about how many people are gonna need those resources, and they'll be looking for homes maybe even with those resources, so.
Right.
Because a lot of people are turned off by putting some of these modifications in their home. What is the resale value gonna do? What's that gonna look like? We just try to tell people, you know, this market it's there. There's gonna be somebody that's looking for a home with grab bars. There's gonna be people that are looking for ramps on their homes. It shouldn't be something that you don't put on because you're worried about the resale value. Yeah. Which maybe you have a different opinion as a realtor, but.
Well, I'm gonna say make it as pretty as possible.
Yeah.
That's
like
our goal
style,
too. We like gold grab bars.
Leah?
So what is the average stay time for an individual in the rehab? I know that the insurance only pays for 1 to 20 days, and after that, you're responsible for that afterwards. So what is the average stay time?
It's hard to say depending on the diagnosis, and I would say that 1 to 20 days is for a Medicare stay, but if you have Humana or Anthem, it's not always 20 days, it's less than that, and they're pushing you out. We try to get people as many resources as possible, as quick as possible when we're treating them, but it's quick.
Also, even though it says 1 to 20, I'm a licensed insurance agent and I sell Medicare.
Mhm.
So I see that, I'm telling people every day, oh, you got 20 days.
You
But I
do
know,
for Medicare,
right, okay,
Yeah,
if
without
you
the
have
copay.
Medicare, okay.
yes.
Mhm.
And then, but after that, so it's hard to say. But if you're not showing progress in the first 7 days, they do push you out. So you can't sit there and say, well, I don't feel like it today. You better kind of stay on target.
You'd be
But they
surprised
will-
how many conversations we have with patients when we treat, like, I don't wanna make this about money,
Yeah.
but you will be, terminated quickly, if you're not participating. We do our best as occupational therapists and PTs and speech therapists to document well that they're progressing and what they're doing and how they're, participating, but sometimes that's not enough.
Again, one of those things that I'm learning is it's important that you really understand your benefits and you
Yes.
know, where when you were younger, you just sort of had that blanket coverage and you went on with your day. But, as we need those resources, it's important for us to think about our life partners, our insurance resource, our financial advisor, our elder law attorney. I mean, these are parts of our tribe. And so staying connected to them and understanding and relying on them is just really important. And for us to start thinking in that direction.
For sure, yeah.
I want to ask Dave, okay, so we did talk about our brains and what's good for the heart is good for the brain and we eating healthy and we're having
Were you looking at me?
mostly healthy meals.
Somebody who doesn't eat
He's like, where's the
healthy
question, Lena?
Okay, got a mental problem.
So we're eating mostly healthy,
Okay.
we're moving, we're socializing, we've made some modifications to our home so that we can get around easily and most importantly try to avoid any fall situations because we don't want to fall again. Okay, so we've done all of that. My question for you, Dave, is how do we know when it's time to start thinking beyond aging in the home? Well, yeah.
Well, I think for me, the whole theme of all of this, and kudos to you guys for being here, because it's all about being proactive. And it's understanding your health, it's understanding safety, and maybe it's not safe to be in the home any longer. If you're lacking that socialization, maybe it's gonna cost too much to add a ramp or other modifications, or you're needing a little bit more consistent care overnights, things like that. Those things are starting to come down the pipe. You should start exploring assisted living options from that angle. Meals are getting harder to prepare, right? It's hard to cook for one or just two people. My mom has been married to my dad for almost 60 years, and she says, I'm just tired of the question, what's for dinner? It's like, that comes up again, I'm gonna lose it. So, my dad doesn't even ask anymore. Yeah, but it's just understanding what those options are, especially the financial piece, and then getting down into the weeds of what each community can provide care-wise, what those next steps look like, how all of that comes together. It's just really a matter of making that first step. It's not scary. We're all here to help with that. My goal is, if you want to move, please reach out to me. If you don't, that's okay too, but at least you'll know what's out there. Maybe it's a year from now, but you'll start to understand what that is, because it's a very emotional, there's a lot of layers to this. It's scary. Nobody wants to do it. It's okay. Nobody wants to move, right? But also understanding what your options are, just getting out in front of it before you have to. To your point, I got 2 calls Friday, one at 4:30 and one at 5:15. Both cases, mom and dad, 2 separate people. Rehab done. Mom's discharging Saturday. She should go home. Where do we go? We didn't know this. We thought we had 3 or 4 more days on insurance, and they're freaking out. 5 o'clock, nobody's calling them back, and I'm trying to help them do that. But right. So,
Yeah, on a Friday night.
yeah, good time.
Yeah. Judy?
For Dave, I think since I have.
She can ask questions.
Dave's Judy, so.
I've had the gift of knowing Dave for over 6 years. He helped me with my stepfather. And I think a common theme is people don't understand the difference between independent living versus assisted living. Could you talk a little bit, I mean, there's independent
talk
living,
about that?
assisted living.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. So there's a difference between independent living and assisted living. Okay, yeah, tell us the difference.
So really, in a nutshell, independent living is gonna be unlicensed. That means they're not gonna have a nursing staff around to respond to any needs. They can't put hands on the residents to maybe help if there's a fall. They can respond, but they might go, you okay? Nope, 911, all right, we'll call 911 for you. So they're not gonna have a nursing team. And assisted living is just gonna be there to provide support and assistance for when you need it. And it has a few more things included, like meals, housekeeping, transportation, activities. But independent is just that, it's independent. That-
So independent living would be like, obviously our homes are
Yeah.
independent living, apartments.
Mhm.
There could also be,
Like a garden home,
a garden
Yeah.
home, okay.
something like that.
What's a garden home?
Like a freestanding, independent living, maybe a 2-bedroom with a garage, like, and everything's
Oh.
all included, you know, from maintenance and, housekeeping might be included, yeah,
Okay, so,
washer and dryer.
so you could be in a, like Robin Rubin or something, they have the
Yeah.
cottages on the outskirt of
Yeah.
the main building.
And then they have independent apartments, and then their assisted living is separate.
Okay.
So you could be an independent living, but you're not gonna have any access to the nursing team or anything like that. You'd have to hire that from a third party outside help if you needed anything with your activities of daily living. The assisted living is gonna be the licensed part, which by the way is not the nursing home. Those are two separate things too.
Okay,
Which-
thank you.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying then is, so we're taking care of our bodies, we've fixed our homes. But if we're not really socializing, the home's not safe, or nutrition, right? Cause I mean, I eat a lot of yogurt, so I'm pretty sure that's not, I try to get the greens in, but it's just easier to eat a little bit of yogurt at night, so, that's probably not gonna carry me very far.
That's not the chocolate mousse with cookie crumbles, probably not, but yeah.
Maybe once in a while. Okay. Let's go back to Tara a little bit, and, to Dave's point, I have a slide at the very end, if anybody wants to talk to Dave, that might help, or he's probably got resources, but I thought it was fascinating when I was getting my, it's called Certified Senior Housing Professional Certification, how many different types of communities there are, and so some have an amazing amount of resources in them, so, you know, you can talk to them, talk to Dave afterwards if you wanna know more about that. Let's go back to Tara. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest myths on aging? What's the research telling us these days?
I just think some of the biggest myths of aging is that your quality of life should decline. That you shouldn't be as active, that there's less opportunities to be as active, that you lose your spark, you know? And I think that's really one of the biggest myths, is aging should not be, this is poor phrasing, but it should not be a death march. You shouldn't just be waiting for whatever that next chapter is. You should be enjoying the story you're living right now. And there's ways to do that. I mean, like I was saying, like being involved. You can explore new hobbies. You can explore and deepen your relationships. You shouldn't be limited by what society tells you the elderly should be doing. You don't need to be sitting watching Jeopardy unless that's something that you really enjoy doing. You know, I do the word cross. I get it. But, you know, you don't have to stop living just because you're aging. And then also a big part, you know, going a little bit more into your brain is that, you know, cognitive decline is not a normal part of aging. Serious cognitive decline is not a normal part of aging. Yeah, you sometimes.
What'd you just say about normal aging? I couldn't hear very well.
No, you're good. So serious cognitive decline is
Okay.
not a normal part of aging.
Okay, yeah.
And I want to shout that from the rooftops. You forget your keys, that's fine. As long as you can find them and you can backtrack, you're like, okay, you know, I lost some keys. Are they by the door? Did I leave them in my pocket? That's fine. That's normal. It is normal to lose your keys. It is normal to have, you know, slight moments of memory difficulties. But if it's to a serious level that, you know, your family members are reaching out to you and being like, Mom, you've forgotten my name 5 times in a row. that's where the conversation should be happening and where you should be doing more interventions with your doctor just to see what's going on. Because yes, I'm from the Alzheimer's Association. I'm not going to tell you that's Alzheimer's. A lot of the time, some of those, cognitive issues can be thyroid imbalance. For women, it could be a UTI. It could be a lot of little things. Vitamin D, vitamin D deficiency can sometimes cause some memory issues. It's not always the big, scary Alzheimer's and dementia, but it's still your brain, and we still want you to take care of it. So still going to your doctor if you're worried about your memory, if you're worried about your ability to talk or, grasp items, definitely, please go to your doctor. But that's also not a normal part of aging. You shouldn't expect that. That doesn't mean you should ignore it, but as you age, you shouldn't expect to lose all of your mental facilities. I met a 99-year-old man, and he was the most energetic person, more so than me. He was riding on a scooter, he was hooting and hollering at all of the ladies. Problematic now, but he's 99. You do whatever you want.
Exactly. You earned that right.
He's earned that right. It's hilarious. But you can thrive. You can be mentally, physically, and socially engaged well into your 70s, 80s, 90s. You should continue to live. And that's just what I think one of the biggest myths are, is that you lose your spark. You don't lose your ability to function and go shopping, and if you want to go gamble, please do it responsibly. Like, you can still explore the world, deepen your relationships, and deepen your experiences as you age. Because we're all aging. It's just up to us how we age. So.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, yes.
I'm just gonna take a little bit of a commercial break here. We have someone in the audience that's having a birthday very soon. Miss Vera, you tell us how old will you be at your, do you want to share?
Yeah, I'll be 100.
Wow.
31st birthday. It's in May. Is it in May?
Yeah.
For some
The
reason.
20th of May.
The 30th?
The 20th.
20th of May. Well, early happy birthday. I met a friend at church a few weeks ago that just wrote a book on centennials. It's in my friend's words. It's stories that they had to tell, and he wrote them down and put them in a book. So it's really cool. 107, 111, 112. So and then one more. I can't remember that age, but that's pretty cool stuff. All right, back to Dave. So many of my friends don't want to think about or talk to their kids about moving on. And of course, again, always aging in place as long as possible.
Yeah.
And we want to honor that, but what can we do? I mean, what's the magic words to use to share with friends that maybe it's time to look at some things?
So I think I don't ever think that it should be like an intervention. Sometimes things warrant that. You should never make somebody feel like this has to happen and you're failing, you're getting older. Like, you don't want to have that type of intervention. So I would say focus on having multiple conversations around that, and sometimes it can be just planting the seeds or just mentioning what senior living can be, and try to read them to see if that's something that they want to engage in, that type of conversation. There's going to be a lot of resistance to it, but the more that you focus on the independence that's truly there, you don't lose independence by moving into a senior community, that they're there to support it. Talking about the emotional aspect, that sometimes it toils on the kids, right? Because they're no longer your son or your daughter, because they're your case manager and your social worker, and it's stressing them out. Being in an environment like senior living can take that off the plate, and you can reconnect and deepen that relationship. Focusing on everything that's positive about it is what you want to lean into. Nobody wants to downsize, nobody wants to get rid of things, but that can also make your life much more efficient and a lot more safe. I had a lady that I just love her to death. She was living in Britton Falls, pretty independent as far as that goes, but she was having some health issues in regard to her balance. She'd lose her balance. And she knew that she wasn't in a safe environment. She put in the grab bars, she'd done what she needed to do, but she just kept saying, I don't want my kids to worry, I don't want something to happen to me. I need to go to assisted living. And she was just resolved about it, and all she kept telling me was, I don't have to go to every meal, Dave, just as long as there's a Trader Joe's nearby and Netflix. If I can get Netflix, I don't care about anything else. And she was very adamant about that. And so we found a community, she fell in love with it, she moved in, she was very excited, her kids were happy, she was feeling just great about this move. But again, didn't care about the meals, just Netflix, so she was good to go. And I checked on her about 3 months, I'd seen her about 3 months later. She was a different person. She was lit up. She was so engaged socially. All the stuff that she didn't want to do, she's like, I went and I put flowers together, and I went on this activity, and then we went to the art center, and my daughter-in-law told me I've done more in 3 months than I have in 3 years. I'm so excited. She was getting that socialization. She was in a safe environment. Her kids were there. Yes, she didn't have her house in Britton Falls, and she had less square footage, but now she was getting everything on top of her Netflix, and she was coming down for meals and interacting, and she knew, she said, if I push that button, I know it's gonna be okay. I've got everything covered. So it was a really wonderful story to focus on what she gained out of it, as opposed to staying put and maybe having an accident that could have turned out completely different.
And again, she's getting that nutrition.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And
for
she's
sure.
getting that socialization.
And peace of mind,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the kids are too, probably.
right.
Let's see. Sam and Haley, can you talk to us about, what are maybe some of those leading causes of falling? You talked to us a little bit about how the falling can lead to more falls. And you talked about some of the grab bars, and you talked about removing rugs. I got a lot of rugs in my house, and I'm thinking
Get them out of there.
get them out of there. Any other strategies that you can share with us about preventing falls that you didn't already mention, or you wanna mention again?
Sure, yeah, a lot of things that people don't think about is the lighting in your home. I love low lighting in the evening. I just think it calms me down. I'm ready to go to bed. But when it comes to aging, low lighting is probably your worst enemy. You know your house like the back of your hand typically if you've lived there for a while. But when you age, those gauges kind of decrease in accuracy. So change in elevation, any type of step or change in surface from carpet to wood, thresholds, those can come out and grab your ankles more than you think that they can. Showers, they may be defined as a walk-in shower, but they may also still have that 3-inch to 4-inch lip. That's still not the best thing when you're changing elevation and you're taking a step into a wet surface. So some things people just overlook because they've done it for years, and you know, I'm okay, I've done that forever. That's the famous story, I've heard it a lot, right? So change in elevation is probably the biggest thing, and lighting, making sure that your space is very well lit to kind of decrease that risk.
I found out with my mother-in-law that one of the riskier moments, it was when she was getting undressed or dressed, because I think it's just your habits. She had the habit of, you know, putting her pants on or taking her underwear off standing. And to break that habit out of her, that just sit down and take that pants off and put it in on. But I guess she's done it like that all her life, and it was really difficult for her to get out of that habit of just standing up and putting her pants on and standing.
Yeah.
And that's why we ended up putting cameras when she was in independent living, because she was still doing things, and it's hard to let them feel like you're, you know, through the voice, like, Mom, sit down, you're getting through the camera, first sit down before doing that, and she's like, what, but we were afraid of that she was, and even when she moved in with me, I had to be with her when she was undressing or dressing and telling her, just sit down, let me help you and sit down. I think habits are a really hard thing to break once you start aging. I mean, last week I was standing from a chair and hurt my knee for some reason, and it was like, okay, now I'm gonna start thinking mom, and I'm not gonna start putting my pants on, standing anymore because I don't wanna get there.
Right. Well, just think about, what if I went into your home and changed everything in your kitchen and where it is?
Yeah.
What if I put all the top shelves on the bottom, bottom on the top? That routine has changed, and you have to actually think through it, and we're trying to get people to think through it before something happens. And modifying your environment is just one way of doing that. That's kind of what we specialize in, but I mean, staying active, eating healthy, making sure you're getting those routine checks every single year, going to your doctor, making sure your vision is good, because we get in those habits, and we just don't think things change, but they do gradually over time.
And I was gonna add wet surfaces. I think that a lot of times people just stand up and get out of the shower and step out of it, and as their balance starts to decrease, sometimes just having a towel right outside and drying off the floor, or putting the towel down so that you have kind of an area to step out of. Wet surfaces get a lot of people. And then contrast, if your floor is the same color as the step, maybe you're not seeing it as your vision starts to change a little bit. If the step into the shower is the same as the step or the base of the shower, then sometimes you don't see that step as easily. So changing the color of the tile, adding some different colored tape, those kind of things can make your vision look at it before you actually take the step as well, can decrease a lot of falls.
And even when visiting other places, we were in Nashville for New Year's Eve, we were staying at a hotel, not paying attention, I get in the shower, not my shower at home, slipped, broke my nose.
Oh my.
It'd be a whole different, and I'm like, man, how did I, I know exactly, how did that happen? And it was, and I can remember going down, and of course vanity, not worried about my head, I was just so more worried about my face, not getting, hitting it on and then when I thought about it more, I was like, crazy, you needed to be protecting your head, not your face, but even just that change, I mean, you get in the shower, you don't pay attention, and it was too slick, and I fell.
Yeah. And that brings a good point to ADA standards. Everyone hears about ADA, safety standards, and, public spaces have to abide by that, which is great. But when it comes to your home, that's not necessarily always the case. A 4'11" woman is very different from a 6'7" man. And so when we walk into a home, they may say, oh, okay, standard 18-inch grab bar, 33-inch height from here to here. That would be great, but if you're reaching really high up to try and pull yourself up and you have no shoulder mobility, can you reach into the top cabinets? Maybe we need to move things for your stature and your capability. It's really important to think about those things. When you do a lot of research on your own and you see that ADA compliant type of product, there's pros and cons to that. So just think about those things prior to placing them in your home to make sure that it's a right fit for you.
And I have something I wanna say about driving. I'm still driving, I'm 83, but I don't wanna keep driving too much longer. But I try to eliminate a lot of left-hand turns. I'll go around another way from making a left-hand turn. I don't like making left-hand, and you have to do a lot of judging, the cars are coming fast, slow, So if I can eliminate that out of my mind, I feel I drive much better, much safer.
There's a strategy there.
Yeah, you have to do that as you get older,
I never thought about that until you just said it. You're right, when you do make the left, you do have to, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you do, you really do.
There's a lot more.
It's a lot more to think about, I don't need to have no more on me than I do,
And there are driving instructors in Indianapolis, I believe it's the Brain Center of Indy, that have a driving instructor who primarily works with the aging population to help see if it is safe for certain individuals to drive.
See, what a great resource.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, and she's phenomenal. Her name is, I believe, Sherry. I think.
Sherry Wall.
Well, I knew it was a V or W, but she does. She'll work with both the caregiver and the individual who's going through the driving test, just to see if it's safe. How can we make it safer? And also, she can assist with those conversations if you're a caregiver of like, is it time to put up the keys?
Is it time to put?
And so we do have those resources in Indianapolis as well. And also I believe AARP has some online resources as well. It's not gonna be as individualized as a instructor working directly with you, but gives some tips about having those conversations and also some pointers for when it may be time to stop
It's a
driving.
good peace of mind too, so
Yeah.
it's not your decision, you know, someone else is helping you make it.
Yeah.
Cause I know if that were me, you know, helping my grandparents or parents, I wouldn't want that burden, you know, completely on me.
Dave, was that did you had
I was,
something?
I was gonna say like, the house, like the clutter, right?
Oh,
People
thank
hang
you.
on to
That's a
stuff,
good
that can
stuff.
be very,
Pointing
very
that out.
dangerous too.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not telling you how to live, right? I don't know your storage capabilities, but, if it's in your walkways, please, you know, find somewhere else. I don't know. But that's kind of a hard conversation to have with clients sometimes because it is your things, you know, your valuables. Maybe you have medical supplies and you just have no place to put them. You know, finding those areas, what can we get rid of, those types of things.
That's probably the hardest thing next to the rugs.
Yeah.
The clutter
People
and the
are really
rugs,
on
they
their
really
rugs.
like them.
I have a friend that does specifically declutter. She's having a workshop on a Saturday. So if you put on your evaluation that you wanna know about that workshop, I will specifically reach out to you with that information. I will say, to shout out a little bit to Jonna at Harmony in the back, is that one of the things that I love so much about what she does is she is very relational and she will help families, determine what's kind of going to their next place. And she will help them with that process. She will, get that boxed up. She will take that to their next space and she will unpack them and make sure that it's safe when her team leaves. So, just wanna, there's not very many people that do that kind of service. So, I wanna,
I've had a conversation with my daughter, she's the only child, and she's kinda, even though I'm only in 66, I can't even remember how old I am, but anyway, she was saying, I kinda like, oh, this is an heirloom, she said, Mom, I know you enjoy your things, but my style and your style are not the same. So she's already done broke it down to me, she said, more than likely, I'm either gonna give it away or throw it away. And it's like, okay, that was a wake-up call. So instead of me trying to hold on to a bunch of stuff, that I'm like, give it away to who? You know, I start taking pictures. If I really like it a lot, I'll take a picture of it. Because I just know, why put the money or investing in stuff that's probably gonna end up in Goodwill or the junk pile. So
Thank
just
you.
kinda get that idea ahead of you and kinda have a conversation with your kids and loved ones, so you know what to let go of and what is important. So.
that's a great point. I wanted to see if Tara wanted to, if there was anything else you had to say about that social, and I keep bringing it up, because I'm reading that's one of the most important
Yeah.
things, social.
And it's super important, especially in the Alzheimer's and dementia world. We are seeing a lot of studies that are showing that social isolation and depression are quickening the decline of those who have Alzheimer's and dementia. So even if you're very early stages, that depression, that social isolation can, we usually see, Alzheimer's and dementia are still kind of a snowflake diagnosis. A lot of your habits do determine, and your genetics determine how your progression looks. But we do still see like stage 1, it can be like 10 years, and the following stages are shorter, stage 3, which is the last stage, is usually 1 to 2 years, with that life expectancy. But that social depression and isolation can kind of jetpack you further along and have you decline cognitively a lot faster than you would see people who are engaging and who are out in the community. So it's really important to keep your brain happy and healthy, and that was one of the scariest things about COVID.
Yes.
So during COVID, that social isolation, because it was a double-edged sword. I experienced it myself with my grandparent-in-laws, where we wanted to visit them, but we were so scared of getting them sick. We were so scared of, exposing them that we stayed away. And I've seen personally how quickly they have declined cognitively, to the point where my grandmother-in-law, probably does need assisted living, but they're being a little stubborn on it, which is completely their right, completely support them living in home, but it's becoming unsafe. But she declined pretty quickly due to some of that social isolation that happened during COVID. But also COVID has instilled a lot of bad habits on social connection in people. People are less likely to call. People are less likely to go out in the community and see each other, especially our aging population, which is why it's so important to, seek those opportunities that kind of force you out of your comfort zone. Whether it's an adult day center, so you can go interact with other seniors, or other people of your own age, different groups. I'm in a community chorus. I get to interact with people of all ages in this community chorus in a way that I can stay engaged, but also stay engaged with some of the aging population in my community as well. There's a lot of opportunities, but sometimes it does take a little bit of, seeking. It takes a little bit of looking, working within your own finances as well, but it's really, really such important to keep your brain active, because also, when you're socially active, a lot of the times, like I mentioned, you're also physically active. Even in assisted living, I've been in assisted livings, those hallways are so unnecessarily long. So as you're walking from your room to happy hour, you're creating, at least a 5-minute walk, and that's better than just sitting. That's better than not walking. So you are getting those opportunities within your community, whether you are aging in place or aging in independent or assisted living as well. But like I said, it's just so important. We've seen a lot of individuals decline pretty rapidly due to some of that social isolation and depression. And so it's really, really important just to work on your mental health, stay connected, and also work on your physical health, because those are, if you're not feeling well, if your hip hurts and you're not doing PT or following your doctor's orders, you're gonna wanna stay inside. I don't wanna go walking if my hip hurts. I don't wanna go walking if my back hurts. But so that's why it's also important, that's why they're all interconnected, because when you work on one, a lot of the times you're working on another.
Okay. John?
Well, I have a question. You were kind of linking the social isolation with depression.
Yes.
But what about in instances, and my father-in-law falls into this category, he doesn't have a lot of social interaction, but he's not depressed. He doesn't seem to. My husband checks in with him pretty regularly, asking that very question. Do you feel lonely? Do you feel, he's like, no, I'm good. And so what about that, where you're not getting a lot of social interaction, and how that still might contribute to cognitive decline, even if you're very content?
And so with social isolation and depression, it's like the whole thing, like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. You can be socially isolated and not depressed. You can be depressed and not socially isolated. Those aren't two things that are always working together, because depression is a clinical diagnosis. There are medical treatments that can assist with some of those depression symptoms. So those may be parallel, and sometimes they do intertwine for individuals, but they're not always walking hand in hand. And so, like I said, you can be socially isolated, but you're not depressed. A lot of people have times of sadness, they have times of blues, but that does not mean they are depressed. But staying socially active is still going to benefit you and going to benefit your brain. But on the other hand, like I said, you can be depressed and not socially isolated. But depression is still going to not benefit your brain. It can still lead to an increase in cognitive decline, because you may be withdrawing, you may be socializing, but you're not there. I'm sure we've all had those moments where, you are talking with someone, but you're just not in it. You're not as engaged. You may be going through the motions, but your heart isn't in it. And that's still, that's not a quality social interaction like I mentioned earlier. So it's really about that quality of social interactions. You don't have to be talking to somebody every second of the day to benefit your brain. But if you're having those good quality interactions, if you're going to church and it's filling your social bucket, being around your congregation, that is so much better than just some of those like kind of meaningless, motions that you're going through. So they're not always hand in hand. They can be. And you can have individuals who, may be a little bit more they may be a little bit introverted, but that doesn't make you immune to needing social connection. It just may look a little different than someone who's extroverted, somebody who is like, I'm gonna go to every type of event possible. But if you're having something that fills your social bucket, and that's what is important, is that you feel like your bucket is full. You feel like you're getting meaningful connection. It doesn't matter how often, what type, because that's all personal, that's all individualized. I can't tell you how to socialize. sometimes I have those days where I'm like, I'm gonna stay home all day. I don't wanna look at a person unless you're on Netflix, like, come on. So it all depends on how your bucket is filled, how you wanna socialize, but what matters is that it's quality and that it's good for you.
And then you do it.
And that you do it, yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna go back to Dave and ask you, are there mistakes people make when choosing a community that you would like to head off, like share?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the biggest is really, I always tell people a move like this starts off as a real estate transaction. You're very concerned about the square footage and the walk-in closet and what do they have and all of that, and that's all very, very important. But really, you're making this move because at some point, you're gonna need care now, or you're gonna need more later. So really understanding how that community figures their care into those care levels, how that assessments are done, and how far you can stay in that community, because at some point that care has to end, right? They can only provide care up to a certain point. What are your options to bring in other resources so you can age in place? All of these communities will say, we're age in place, and I always tell families, yeah, but there's kind of an asterisk at the end of that age in place. At some point, they're not gonna be able to do X, Y, and Z. That's when the nursing home comes in, and families need to understand that. I get calls all the time that said, oh, well, we moved mom to memory care, and we thought that she was gonna be there forever, and now they're telling us we have to move. And I'm like, what happened? Oh, she's a two-person transfer. I'm like, yeah, they're licensed as assisted living. They can't do two-person transfers. That's a nursing home. Well, we didn't understand that. Yeah, sorry, but
And
I would help
know, graceful aging now, we're seeing that we're going into a lot of assisted livings and helping, like we're having staff inside of assisted living, because it's, to your point, it's like, some of the things, like we're working with a lady now, so she wouldn't have to go to a level 2, we come in, we do some of the things that they, and it saved her a lot of money.
Right.
You have to kind of get creative with it, right?
Yeah.
And so when we had another lady, I loved her husband, she wanted him to have 24-hour care. And he was inside of a facility, but she wanted him to have one-on-one. And so that's what we did. We stayed with him 24 hours.
In his community.
In his community, yeah, and we're starting to see a lot of that, and I was like, no, this is not, but they're in these places now,
Yeah.
so that's their home.
And I think it's important to, again, your resources, your team, your insurance company helping you to navigate like the Medicaid and Medicare situation. So again, they're part of your team.
Yeah.
Because you can, to some extent, depending on what you're working on and what you've chosen, and it's important to know that and be able to go back to your resource to find that out. Cause that's, yeah, Bill.
You mentioned two-person transfer. What is a two-person transfer?
That's if a resident can't bear weight on their own. So to get up out of this chair, I can't bear weight.
Okay.
It takes two
You
people to
need
help
two
me
people to get you.
Yeah.
move from wheelchair to the couch, or vice
I
versa.
got you now, I got you.
And then also, she just said level 2, so what is level 1, 2, and 3?
Yes,
What
it's,
is it, so different levels?
It depends.
It
Yeah.
depends.
Every community, there's not a
Everyone's
standard for
Yeah.
assisted living as far as levels of care, so they all have their own levels, but when you're in assisted living, you have two costs. You have what's called the base rate, and then however much assistance they're gonna provide with you, how frequent that is, how long that assistance takes, the longer, the higher level of care. So some communities have 3 levels, some have 5, some have 7. It doesn't necessarily mean
Wow.
that 7 does more care than 3.
right,
It's how they do their levels of care.
Define it now.
Exactly.
Yeah, and understanding that and knowing that, cause one assisted living, there's some out there that they won't help somebody that can't get to the bathroom on their own. They'll move them to the nursing home.
yeah.
Wow.
But for that other community, they'll do that type of care, that's not a problem. So you don't wanna move mom into a place where if she's having trouble, now quickly, boom, she's in a nursing home. You need to understand all of that, and that's what I help people have those
So you need to
conversations.
have that conversation up front and know exactly
Right.
what that facility, what their base and their levels, and, I would have even known to even ask that.
That's,
That's a lot.
okay.
That's why I'm here.
That's exactly what, like, I look, like, again, part of my process, I had to go and visit different communities, and I had to ask, a plethora of questions, and I had to understand what the differences are. But that's not just a one-time conversation, because everybody is even a little bit different, and then you have to think about changes over time. Dave, what do I do? Do you do tours? Do you?
Oh yeah, that's all part of it. So yeah, so when I'm here, I'm like, almost like a realtor. I'm like Leanne, but for senior living. So you can come to me and say, hey, this is XYZ is going on. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. We'll have an in-depth conversation. I'll provide recommendations where I share all of my notes on those communities to kind of create that transparency of what I know. If you like those options, I go on the tours with you. So we'll have those questions. I will ask that, make sure you're understanding. We'll talk about, yeah, I like this about this one, but not that one, and I'll help you with that. It's always your decision, but I get paid just like Leanne. The seller of the house pays the referral fees. If I bring you to a community, they pay me a referral fee. So there's no cost. I'm here to make sure you can make the right decision the first time and not have to move multiple times.
But you see moves, don't you, Jonna? You
Pardon?
see community moves.
I see community.
Yeah, don't you sometimes move people from community to community?
Yes.
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 And that does happen.
Oh, sure, yeah.
People, management changes or, whatever changes, because I've heard you say that. You're
Yes,
moving a friend
yeah.
from a place to a place.
Usually the reasons associated that oftentimes is, they may have moved into a community which was near their house, but now they've decided to move, to a community that's closer to where maybe their son or daughter lives on the north side of town. I have had people move, because of the food.
It's a big
They just
deal.
decided they wanted
Yeah.
to, move somewhere else because they weren't happy with the food, because that's important, nutrition. But yeah, that does happen. Not often, but it does happen. Usually people kind of, particularly when somebody like Dave can kind of, help in that decision process as far as helping you understand maybe the vibe, what the community is like, knowing, the questions to ask about levels of care, and you can kind of make a good decision to start with. That helps to minimize that.
I wanna ask, I'm gonna open it up for questions, but I wanna ask, Haley and Sam one more thing. Or I guess I want you to share one more thing. What is one of the best resources that you two offer the community? You actually go and.
Sure, so we do home assessments, of course. As OTs, we used to do that before COVID when we worked in rehab settings. After COVID, we weren't really equipped to do that. They were giving us minimal time. You had to live within a 5-mile radius of the facility. Sometimes as OTs, we're treating 15 to 16 patients a day, so it was hard to get out of the space. So we were seeing a lot of our patients weren't able to go home because their space was not set up, right? So we do the home assessment, you get all that information, but we also have vetted quite a few contractors and handymen in the community to then kind of make that connection for the homeowner to make sure that that gets done correctly. We provide product lists if that's something that you are interested in, of which, grab our lighting do I even need? We give links, prices, we talk through the financial situation. We also make sure you understand what's important to do now and what can wait. Because I think that's a pretty big question that people have is, how long can I stay in my space? We don't know that answer, but if we change these things right now versus maybe this is more of a long-term goal, it seemed to help them quite a bit. We can kind of be there throughout the project. We've stayed with a shower remodel, got there the first day, checked in a few of those days to make sure the contractor isn't leaving things around and doing things the right way, but typically we work with pretty good contractors that have the same aging in place specialty as we do, so they speak the same language. And just making sure, we're pretty much there for whatever you need in order to get those things done to your home.
And I would just say the value of like our assessment, we try to tier it. So right now you're walking and still driving and doing all of these things, and so we try to put it, if you were to need a walker, here are the things that we would recommend then. If you were to need a wheelchair, here are the things that we would recommend. If maybe our client has Parkinson's, We grade it a little differently, you know, when you can't lift your leg 4 inches anymore to take that shower step, here are the things that we would change when these different things happen. So we can see into the future with some of these diagnoses and know eventually you're not gonna be able to lift your leg those 4 inches. We don't know when, it depends on how your body progresses, but eventually with how these diseases kind of evolve, you're gonna have these things. So we're able to gauge the home assessment to your specific diagnoses, to things that you're already having, or maybe you don't have anything, but maybe one day you'll need a walker and you're gonna need space in your home for that walker. So we're able to kind of guide people through that and say, right now, these are the most important. When this happens, these are what would recommend when this happens.
But I think with our clinical background, it gives us kind of that opportunity to understand if it's maybe not safe to stay home as well, you know, having those hard conversations. We're not working as clinical OTs when we come into your space, we're aging in place specialists, but we have that background and knowledge to kind of know. And that's why we've, you know, become friends with Dave and other resources around the community to help you as much as possible. Meals on Wheels, different resources to make sure you're safe in the space. Because if you're not, you know, we feel pretty obligated to kind of mention that.
I want to give you a chance to ask questions, but I guess 2 things that I want to share with you are I want to thank you, first of all, for being here, starting to think proactively, because it's just when things happen in a crisis situation, so many of your choices are we don't have those choices anymore. Time is of the essence, and availability is of the essence, and Dave won't know your preferences if you haven't had a conversation with them. So the other thing I wanted to make sure you're aware of is while we have these resources in the room, having a wealth manager help you know what your financial choices are, and an elder law attorney to make sure you have things, all the documents you need in place, so that if anything happens, I'm not saying it right, if anything happens, you have someone on your team that can help you with your home, your finances. You just don't want to have everything in that lockbox where nobody knows how to access. So there are things an elder law attorney will go through with you and just sit down and talk to you and just walk you through the whole process. So just think about that as well. All right, I'm gonna let you ask your questions now. Bill?
We have, besides having like an elder care attorney, I'm not sure how I wanna put this out there. Yeah, they're gonna get you all your living wills and everything like this, you know, the ABCDs and everything like that.
Power of attorney.
What is else needed? I know right now I'm starting to, I got my financial advisor. He says, I got a son that lives with me. He goes, you're the only one alive. Get his name on the house, get his name on the car. If you don't, it's gonna cost a lot of money. So,
Right.
and all I gotta do is go up to Boone County, get it done. It's just, it's simple, but how do you really, is that like talking to one of you folks to really?
No, it would actually be talking to Kara's boss, just quite honestly, is, that's the one thing I'm learning about this senior community, is there are highly recommended people that do what they do well. And I will say Jenny, Kara's boss, is with Indiana Elder Law.
Indiana Estate and Elder Law.
Indiana Estate Law.
I told you earlier that I just now started this process. I went to
Yeah, absolutely.
2 nursing home, assisted living type, independent living. I knew they weren't gonna be cheap. Wow, they aren't cheap. I don't know, I got a house, 2-story house. Fortunately, I got a master bedroom on the first floor,
Good for you.
which makes a big
Yes.
difference. I still go up and down the steps once or twice a week for exercise.
Yeah, yeah.
But knowing that I could come and talk to you
Yeah.
folks, just
Yeah.
on, I won't have all the questions right now, but I'll be sitting
It's-
home,
It really
That's what
is a team, it really is having a team.
yeah, I'm finding that out because you go to one place, oh yeah, you got all this, they all got dining rooms, they got all the lounges and all the workout facilities. What do I need? Yeah, I'm happy going to the YMCA down on Lafayette Road because it was set up by Ortho Indy. It's really made for that kind of stuff.
But I think, like, I know Indiana State Elder Law, like if you went to them and sat down and said, hey, I'm thinking about maybe moving at some point to senior living, how long will my finances last? They can help, like, hey, we could put this in a trust to preserve this, we can do this for you, and it gives you all these levers to pull.
I'm already going through,
Yeah.
that with my financial guy. My financial guy had him about 15 years.
Okay.
And he'd been working, he goes, he's only got another 8 years, but he's got an assistant come along. I go, you can't quit until I quit.
Yeah.
Well, I was just like, Alex, would you advise someone all of those things, or would you recommend partnering with, an elder law attorney?
Definitely the expert elder law attorney, so I'm a financial advisor, and so I
Yeah.
often recommend older folks look for a younger person that's gonna be there when you need them the most.
Well,
Right?
that's what I told my financial guy. I said, you can't retire. He goes, this guy sitting beside me here right now, or the gal that I had there before,
Right.
either one of them were to take my place. I said, I'll accept both of them. I mean, that's what I'm looking for, you know?
Right. I mean,
I
titling
wouldn't know,
assets.
you go out and start planning this stuff and you go, I'm planning on my last 20 years of my life right now, and I'm gonna be 75 next month.
Mhm.
So that's my goals,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
And
I
I've
might
got a
not make it
document
past-
with, back here at the table with what my loved ones need to know, that's kind of like, just if you were becoming incapacitated or need some help with that, what are some of the things that you need to have in place? So if you wanna grab that.
yeah,
it's
yeah, I'd
free.
love to.
Get some information.
You know, I might walk out the steps out here, crack my head.
That's
and
right.
Don't say
And I still
that.
gotta get my son's name on the house and the car. I'm not planning on that, but you don't know.
You don't know. I'm super impressed that you were planning.
Yeah,
this.
that's awesome.
No,
It's awesome.
that's the overthinker of the management coming out of me in the last 50 years of work. You go to work with 4 plans and hopefully one of them works, and then you punt again, you know?
Got a backup plan, do a backup, yeah.
It feels safer to be
Yeah,
a little bit more, it feels safer to be more educated in these areas.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this might be the question. One for my sister, she has a disability, but her son is also disabled, and she's looking at doing a disability trust, which I had not heard of until about a week ago. And so who would I go to for that, or she would go for?
You can connect with me, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what I wanted to check whether or not to, because, again, something new, Leanne, I'm like, okay. That's all I need to know.
Good, thank you.
What is a disability trust? I'm just short synopsis.
Well, really, it really looks at kind of specific things, if people are, mentally capable to handle, specific tasks, or if those need to be kind of given to a power of attorney that might be a family member, specifics in that way, it kind of just looks at who needs to kind of be having ownership of different areas or being responsible
Kind
for
of like
it.
a series of what ifs, what if this, and just documenting those things. So many of us think we know, or our children think they know what we want, but if we don't have it written down, that's just a difference in, age and
Perception.
perceptions, thank
Yeah.
you for that.
I have 2 children and each of them think I want different things.
Yes,
Well, I
again,
have
the
1 girl,
benefit
1 boy.
of getting that written down.
So, and we also have, representative from Kaylee's firm is gonna be speaking at Centerwell, at, College Park on the 23rd.
There you go.
So
You might wanna
if
write that.
attend that event, I got cards for that
Yeah,
too.
Okay.
yeah. Yes.
I just wanna make sure, because with the disability trust, cause I have a particular member who has his son who's not able capacity, but he pretty much wanted to stay at home. So would the estate planner be able then to split up the trust so the home will be managed, if they put it funded correctly, managed, so it'll be able to keep the property taxes and keep it up? Is that how the disability trust work, or?
Well, I would just encourage you to reach out to
Okay.
an
An elderly type of person, and make sure okay.
It's done the way you want,
Okay.
and before you're in a crisis situation.
Right, way before time, so make sure they're funding it
Yeah,
correctly.
and one of the things that Mike and I have talked about before is how it's not a one and done. You start these conversations, you document where you are, but you revisit them, just like you would revisit with your wealth manager, maybe when you do your taxes every year. So, it's gonna serve you better to stay on top of those. Yeah, good. give you the rest of the time then to sort of talk to your experts and ask some of your questions.
Thank
That's
you.
The best you can do.